Hey, what's going on, WBE fans? It is General Tarheel, your lead Pickems analyst, bringing you back a good buddy of mine. It's Sawk joining me for another week.
Yo, what's going on, WBE fans? It's Sawk with another week for the Pickems this time.
Glad to have you back, and it's going to be another great week for sure. I'm looking forward to going through these very interesting games. We got some very strong ones coming in for this week.
Absolutely, but first, everyone, make sure you've subscribed to the WBE channel already so you guys get updated when we hit those videos up on the channel. And if you want to actually get notified when to do that, because YouTube sub boxes are perfect and we all love them so dearly much, ring that bell. That way you guys are notified whenever we go live. Also, we're going to talk about the Twitter votes for your guys' side of the votes. Make sure to follow the WBE Twitter at Pokemon WBE. Every Wednesday, we put out the picks, and you guys can pick what you want and who you think is going to win the game. And that is how we decide. We want to hear your stuff. And last but certainly not least, go buy yourself a shirt. You look beautiful in it.
Always got to make sure to remind the people that they look beautiful. Even without the shirt, you're beautiful, but you're like drop dead gorgeous if you buy a shirt.
I mean, Kyle is doing a pretty good job either way.
Oh, that's true. I mean, his shirt's banned, so.
I mean, not wrong, not wrong.
All right, guys. But as for last week, we actually forgot to talk about the records of the analysts last week, so we do apologize about that. But I'm gonna go through that really quick for how we did in week 4. So your boy, me, General Tarheel, came out top, going 13-1 last week for Pickems, being at the top right there. Right behind me was CJ at 12-2, and then everyone else was averaging around 11-3 or 9-5. So not too bad, but with me taking that 13-1 last week, I was actually able to take first place for overall Pickems at 45-11, with Uzi Gunner right behind me at 44-12. So all the analysts are doing pretty good. Make sure to do your picks on Twitter. Keep track of them yourselves, because unfortunately we can't really, keep tracks of everyone's votes and everything of the sort. We're just doing the majority of the vote. But when it comes down to it, we're keeping track of the lock-ins, make sure it's all close and whatnot, because if Uzi and I were tied, we're both also tied on locks, but that will come down to for differential-wise.
And when he says, like, make sure you get your vote on Twitter, there's 240 votes apiece on the average. So your vote can sway the percentages even that little tick. So be sure to check that out. But regardless of all that, let's get into what you guys came for, the actual Pickems. So moving into this week, and leading off, we have the Durham Druddigons, coached by 6-foot hacks, aka Leo, versus the Pittsburgh Pirates, aka Old Man Tup. Now, Tup, Roserade is an absolute beast this game. Hidden Power Ice, Dual Stab is in like Leaf Storm and Sludge Bomb, and Spikes do so much work at pressuring most of Leo's team. Now, on the flip side, I don't see many good switch-ins to Mega Lopunny, and D-Knight kind of just cleans as soon as Musharna goes down. But the Mon to keep an eye out here for is definitely going to be Kevin Durant. Given Tup's team, Durant does more work than I do during my 9 to 5. Regarding the fan vote on Twitter, you guys actually decided to have the vote Leo 90% to 10% with 236 votes. So, pretty lopsided. You guys are kind of sticking with the rest of the analysts here. Tarheel, what do you think?
I mean, I can't blame them, dude. Leo's been having a great start to the season for sure, and then just that matchup is looking kind of terrifying. Megalop is definitely going to do a lot of work like it normally does. Leo's very comfortable with this team. I know he's just going to be able to pull it through versus Tup, who's had a pretty rough start so far in the season. Coming into Game 2, we have the Chicago Cubs, coached by Galactic Elliott, going up against the Chicago Boufflons, going up against Sacred. So we got the Battle of Chicago right here. We got a turf war going on. So for this matchup, I'm looking at Elliott having no switch-ins to Mega Arrow whatsoever. Just stabs plus Ice Fang to help with Mega Garchomp is going to be really helpful, because Mega Garchomp is bulky, so being able to have that Ice Fang I feel like would benefit them very well. And then for a fourth option in the moveset, you could have Sub or Roost, really just for the longevity of Mega Arrow, or to watch out for potential Scarfers that really want to counter it. It's just an absolute threat. I really hope Sacred be able to use that well, because that is going to be his main way of winning this game for sure. As for Elliott, Aqua Tail Z with like Swords Dance and just set up sweep Scolipede has very strong potential, especially when the main counters are in like a bulky Arcanine or that of a Rhyperior. Veil is also going to be very important for the Cubchus in this matchup because of their just overall kind of lack in bulk, because I feel like the offense for the Boufflons is pretty strong right here against the Cubchus when it comes down to it, so not being able to deal with everything too well, the Veil's really just going to help you to at least switch into something and not immediately get two-shot potentially, so that's going to be very important for them. And for the Bouffalants, they really just have to make sure they balance their bulk with arrow. I feel like that's going to be important. Have another potentially like pretty decent offensive mon in something such as Mean Shower, Espeon, or even like a Spexcurum if they really wanted to. I feel like that could be pretty interesting. But just as long as you balance the bulk to support Mega Arrow, his team's going to be very strong. And even though I feel like kind of the matchup is well in favor of the Chicago Bouffalants, purely because of Mega Aerodactyl, I had to go with the Chicago Cubchews in this matchup just because of how well Elliott has done so far compared to the Chicago Bouffalants. And a decent amount of analysts agreed with me, somewhat split, but as for home, y'all decided to vote 79% in the Chicago Cubchews' favor.
Absolutely, and I completely agree with you there. Elliott's been playing very, very good Mons, and I can't go against his team right now with the way he's been playing. He's just kind of on cruise control, doing really well. And so I'm gonna hop in that SUV Elliott's driving all the way to the win column.
True, dude.
Absolutely. You know what's absolute? This next game, the San Diego Chim Chargers versus the Florida Gators, which is Lord Envy versus its Gator. Wow. Volcarona is an absolute win con this week. It's an absolute beast and a threat to all of Envy's team. Now, on the flip side, this also does mean that Ditto is absolutely coming. No doubt, no questions asked. It's priced guaranteed. Like, put it on the sticker, slap it on top of a car roof, guaranteed. I don't care, and I don't see how Gator's team can take on a Volcarona if Heatran goes down. Like, if Volcarona's in and set up, it just... Where's the fat lady? I hear her singing already. The other thing I do want to point out, though, is Azumarill does such a crazy amount of work. I could see Bandit or Belly Drum cleaning late game if Volcarona isn't able to pick it up. I think Azumarill definitely comes on in and takes this. And at the fan vote, you guys decided to vote 82% for Envy and his Chim Chargers versus the 18% for Gator.
Yeah, no matter what it comes down to here, it's going to be an amazing match because these are some of the best coaches in the league for sure. They've been doing very hot so far at the start of the season. But when you bring up that Azumarill, I definitely see it happening, especially with strong support and like trapping Doug Trio. That's going to be doing very well versus Gator's team, I feeling like. Just to get off the damage for Azumarill. Next up, we have the Bristol City Blazikens, coached by Gameboy Luke, going up the New York Noibats, coached by Mewtwo fan Nate. For this matchup, there is 2 immunities going up against Thundurus, but nonetheless, this thing is such a major threat when it comes to its coverage, especially with Nasty Plot. Electrium Z could actually blow something back, especially like Necrozma for sure, or Scrafty, everything of the sort. You can try to run Focus Miss in order to hit the Scrafty or the Togedemaru, which can have the immunity versus the Electro-type moves. Could also really want to run Hidden Power Ground if he wants to Togedemaru like that. Just kind of depends on that mark. As for the Blazikens, Primarina is going to be very important in this matchup, both as a solid counter to Hydreigon as well as being pretty strong offensively. I feel like it's going to be doing pretty well, as he might want to run just an offensive Assault Vest set, or just especially defensive to get deal with it, or Specs if he really feels like that's going to be the best route this game. Either way, I feel like there's no way Primarina does not come this game. It's going to be pretty important there. While Lando Eye is also going to be amazing as a mixed wall breaker with like knockoff for Slow King, and then having, of course, Earth Power as in Sludge Wave for things like Sylveon. I feel like it's going to be doing amazing with its coverage in this match. And just based off of how the teams have done so far, I had to go with the Bristol City Blazikens in this matchup against New York Noibats. Majority of the analysts agree with me, apart from Chris Cobain and actually you, Sawk, going with New York Noibats. And as for the fans, 81% in the Bristol City Blaziken favor.
Like you said earlier, Primarina is going to be really important in this matchup to kind of counter Hydreigon. However, remember, Hydreigon does get Z-Belch, so that is something we could easily see just kind of one-shot the Primarina, and I think Hydreigon is honestly going to be the biggest thing to help Nate win this game, and I could see it winning the game for him. Next up here, we have the Melbourne Rotoms, coached by Aaron Cybertron Zhang, versus the Atlanta Umbreons, coached by Feign-Attacks. Now... Kartana does so much work that Shay nods in respect, although Meloetta's Hidden Power Poison kind of revenges it pretty easily, smiley face. Another thing I can see doing a metric ton of work is actually a Scarf Mamoswine. Ironhead, Dual Stab, it does a lot of work, and Feint does not have a lot of good switch-ins on his team to kind of stop that. Now, speaking of Meloetta, it's going to be the saving grace here. Being able to try to take a hit from Mamo and hitting back with Focus Miss, keyword miss, is going to be a beauty to see the animation go off if it does. So that's the real thing here. I think Meloetta is heavily pressured in this game to try to take it for him. And you guys at home seem to kind of go with me and picking the Melbourne Rotoms at 59% versus the Atlanta Umbreons on Fanatex's side at 41%. A pretty close vote, I may add.
Yeah, it's going to be very tough for them to deal with Mammal Song right there. That thing just looks like it picks up a kill period when it is inside. So Next up, we have the Maryland Terrapins, coached by under the radar Kelly, going up against the Miami Dolphins and Kyle A with the only team that matters. When I'm looking at this matchup, it's going to be very important for Kyle to respect Mega Sableye. Kyle is not a fan of bulky Pokemon, and Mega Sableye is known just for calm minding and winning sometimes because of its amazing magic bounce ability and its just crazy bulk and only being weak to fairy type moves. So he's going to have to be very careful with how he plays his Diancie, which he has done very well with so far in the season, I feel like. Definitely being an important Pokemon to help him at least set up for potential win cons in his games. He's done pretty well with it, getting those boosts and everything with Diamond Storm, but not going to help him so much versus a Banded Zygarde, which is absolutely terrifying in this matchup. Crest can try its best to switch in, but it's not always going to be the most ideal thing. And there's also the very strong potential Trick Room from the Maryland Terrapins on the Stakataka to counter the Weather Sweepers. So like Victory Bell and Kingdra can't get their boosted speed and try to just sweep Maryland Terrapins. So even though I feel like this matchup could be kind of 50-50 and everything, I'm definitely going to have to go with the Maryland Terrapins and Kelly because he's had a lot better success so far in the season and pretty well rounded with his team. And as for the fans, y'all decide to go with 64% in the Maryland Terrapins.
Absolutely. I can't bet against the Snecks. Like, the Snecks are going to do work. Like you said, Banded Zygarde is just an absolute threat. And it literally picks up a kill anytime it comes on in my opinion. And it's hard to pick against Kelly with the mons he's playing right now.
Oh, for sure. He is so comfortable with this team.
Go figure. Kelly's comfortable with Snecks. Anyway, going into our next game, we have the Sin City Scissors, coached by Patty Trills, versus the Seattle Sea Kings, coached by Joe Dorr. Now, Joe, I think Infernape is going to be key in this game for Joe to try to take his first game. Along with the ability to have DD Haxorus in the back, it can try to break most of Patty's team for Haxorus or Infernape to win. However, Mega Alakazam kind of runs all through and over Joe's team. His walls are way too passive to try to break Zam, and his hard hitters die to 3-man attacks that it needs: Psyshock, Dazzling Gleam, and Shadow Ball. The biggest thing for me with this game is the fact that Patty has been playing well and he has a solid team to lean on. Joe really doesn't when you look at his team. His cohesion, like, you can kind of see it, but it isn't all there yet. And you guys at home kind of had the same idea with us. Guys picking the Sin City Scissors at an 89%, while only 11% voted for Joe and his Sea Kings to pick up his first win of the season. Looking at our votes here, it looks like Dr. Slacking is out of his mind picking Joe for this game.
Yeah, I was a fan of Joe's team at like the first draft and everything, but with these transactions, I really don't know how I feel about it anymore. His bulk is just way too passive, and I feel like that's going to hurt him a lot, especially with a nice, strong, well-rounded team on the Sin City Scissors. For the next match, we have the Free State Torcats, coached by Duncan Can't Die, going up against the Toronto Togekiss and the Heated Mo. Blacephalon is going to be absolutely terrifying this matchup. It's when it gets those Beast Boosts late game. That's going to be, so scary. Mega Absol is going to be very important for them to counter it, mainly because it checks the potential Choice Scarf that really just wants to do the cleanup duty. Not being Scarfed is a little bit more helpful to deal with Pokemon like the Blastoise and everything of sorts, so you don't have to just like locking yourself into Fire Blast, for example, or locking yourself into Shadow Ball to make sure you can hit the Latios and everything like that. But Scarf is going to do very well cleanup duty, so I feel like that's what's most likely to come. But Blacephalon is also a good counter to Belly Drum Linoon, because Linoon's not able to deal with it with its speed tier. It's not allowing it to hit it with extreme speed, which could be very important. Just allowing you to hit it with a fire type move and just bop Linoon and not even worry about it anymore is going to be a major key. Jirachi, I feel like, is going to be an important bulky pivot for mons such as Latios and Whimsicott, which typically are going to do pretty well offensively, mainly Latios. But you have to be aware of like the Z Latios with Shadow Ball, or just like a very offensive Calm Mind Shadow Ball Latios for sure. The other potential Z user is going to be Fight Z on Cobalion. I feel like that has a lot of potential in this matchup, especially when you have just Mega T-Tar right there on the back, or if he's trying to blow back the Hitmontop, because I feel like Hitmontop's going to be a pretty reliable, bulky Pokemon in this matchup potentially. So has to be aware of that. But Whimsicott, of course, being one of the best Zygarde checks, even though Zygarde does get the Sludge Wave coverage if he really wants to go with that. but it can also provide the Prankster defog help versus the webs that the Arachnoid wants to try to get up, where you're able to defog versus everything except the Mega T-Tar, because Prankster doesn't work versus Dark type. But apart from that, that's going to be very helpful, especially if Duncan's going to try and rely on the webs. I feel like that's something they have to watch out for. But when it comes down to it, I decided to go with the Free State Torcats. Majority of the analysts, except for Aaron and JB Westside, decided to go for the Toronto Togekiss and Heat Mo. And as for you people at home, you decide to go with 63% in the Free State Torcats.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Blaziken. I'll say it now. I'll say it again. I'll say it everywhere. Blaziken is one of my favorite Pokemon to use, and it can just win games on matchup. A Scarf set is so scary to prep for because of its high speed already. A Scarf outspeeds most common Scarfers, so having to prep for it and kind of realizing, okay, when can I let Blaziken come in, claim a kill, and what can I pressure it back out with? That back in the back of your mind is just so tormenting. I love Blaziken so much. Such a good Pokemon. I love it.
Yeah, dude, it's gonna blow your mind if you're not careful, brother.
Yo, that is the best clown I've ever seen. The mind games are real.
True.
Speaking of the mind games, we have, in my opinion, the most hype match of the season. The Bronx Bearticks, coached by Joey Pokane, versus the Milwaukee Bears, coached by WolfClick. This match is heavily anticipated, in my opinion, mostly because I think this has very much the possibility to be the game of the season. These coaches are both such great players, and honestly, seeing two great teams come at each other, I'm definitely popping some popcorn. I'm grabbing some M&Ms and Skittles. I'm throwing them inside the popcorn, grabbing handfuls, chowing down, and it's going to be a good game to watch. Now, the trades definitely benefited both teams here on Joey's side. Getting rid of Volcarona didn't really help much against Wolf's team, because Volcarona didn't do a whole lot. Zeraora, on the other hand, pressures a lot of Wolf's team, and really lets Pex wall most of Wolf's team after that, especially Gengar, because that Mon can get out of hand very quickly. I can see Mega Gallade coming, and putting a metric ton of work on most of Wolf's team. His best check to stop it is really Mega Blastoise, which kinda wants to be offensive this game, in my opinion. However, my last point is that Excadrill is such a pain for Joey to switch into, even if it's Scarf. Like, it is the mon to watch this game for sure, and could be legit the reason why Wolf wins the game, or Joey wins it, depending on how well played it is. And you guys at home decided to go with 64% in the Bronx Bearticks' favor, and 36% in the Milwaukee Bears' favor.
That's definitely going to be one of the games of the season. I'm kind of jealous you got to talk about that one, because those are some of the top contenders for sure in this entire league. And Zeraora, I feel like, is just going to be an absolute monster in this matchup, and I'm looking forward to watching it.
Mm-hmm. And one quick thing. If I had to pick between a Beware and a Beartick, I'm definitely going with Beware, especially if you know me.
True. Both scary bears right there, dude. Alright, next up we have the Rochester Right Ons, coached by Iron Boffin, going against the Milwaukee Sawsbucks and Magnitude. Looking into this, Bandit Staraptor just claims one. It's as simple as that. The Sawsbucks do not have a Steel type or even a Rock type, for that being said, and it's just going to be terrifying for them to deal with. They basically just got to sack something. It's just what it comes down to, in all honesty. And it's going to be really helpful if Steve just decides to throw out Clefable, and if Clefable's gone, then that's going to help out the Right Ons so much. So Steve has to be really careful how he plays his Clef, make sure he doesn't switch that into Staraptor. You have to be very careful with your sacks versus that thing, because that will definitely just pick something up, and it's going to be free, 1,000,000%. But we also have Volt Absorb versus Volt Absorb here with Jolteon and Thunderous T. We got Jolt, who can run Synchronoise versus Thunderous T, will be actually pretty interesting. As well as Poison Z Thunderous is probably going to be the wave here for Steve, so he can use like Z Sludge Wave versus the Shaman or the Mega Altaria, as well as can just hit Jolteon pretty strong or anything of the sort. Also has potential coverage and like Grass Knot for Rhydon, so you have to be really aware about all the stuff that Thundurus can run. It's just got such a beautiful amount of sets that it can do with like Scarf or just Nasty Plot setup, Dual Dance, etc., etc. So you have to be aware of that. But Shaman plus Suicune deals so well with Mega Swampert in the rain that I feel like it's going to be kind of like lowering the rain side for the Sawsbucks, which I feel like they don't really benefit too much outside of rain, in all honesty, with this team. So that's going to be pretty important. But T-Spike's Quillfish, I feel like, could be an issue because they don't have the best removal on the Rochester Right Ons team, especially since they don't have a poison type to absorb it. So I feel like that's got to be something they have to watch out for. But when it comes down to it, even though Iron Boffin has let me down a few times when I picked them, I'm picking with Iron Boffin again this week because I just love his team, and I feel like the matchup's pretty decent versus the Milwaukee Sawsbucks. And when it comes down to it, it's almost I guess, 60-40 in the Rochester Right Ons favor for the analysts. And when it comes down to the votes for you guys, you take 59% in the Milwaukee Sawsbucks favor.
Mm-hmm. And I see what you did there with that pun. Poisonium Z Sludge Wave is the wave, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Pun game recognizes game. Now, I can't go against Boffin with this matchup here. As you said, Poisonium Z is like such a hard thing to switch into. However, my biggest thing with it, like you said, is Shaman. Shaman does so much work this game that I literally could see it coming in, claiming a kill, switching out, coming back in, claiming a kill, switching out, and picking up 5 of the 6 kills this way.
If he lands his seed flares. Ooh.
Yeah, there's your question. Does he hit? Remember, guys, say it with me, hacks is a win con.
There you go.
But yeah, going into our next game here, we have the Pittsburgh Peach, who is coached by Nexus, versus the Tennessee Trubbish, coached by Deathly I Am. Now, Gudra on Nexus' side is absolutely amazing this game at helping stop Mega Beetrol with its hidden ability in Gooey, which is really cool, slowing the opponent's speed by 1 if hit by a physical move. If Gudra does go down, though, Mega Beetrol has the right to just kind of come on in, click buttons on most of Nexus' team, besides maybe a defensive Swampert, but I don't think it wants to take any chip because it has to help deal with Embor. Now, Gardevoir is also really good this game at helping set up a possible Tyrantrum run towards the end of the game, but in all actuality, it gets walled by Yachi Tangrowth. Like, physically defensive Yachi Tangrowth kind of stops Tyrantrum in its tracks. The one mon that does stand out to me, though, is Xcloud. I don't see a lot of great switch-ins if Celesteela is whittled down, and because of its lack of recovery, Celesteela is heavily pressured in this game to try to help take on Xcloud. And so if Nexus gets one prediction right and hits the Celesteela with like a hidden power fire, it could be all she wrote for Deathly. Going into your guys' decisions here, you guys decided to go with me and Nexus in the Pittsburgh Peach at 73%, while 27% of you guys voted for Deathly. On the analyst side, it is almost a wash. Besides Cobain, he decided to pick the Trubbish, but everyone else decided to go with Nexus and his waifu-loving Pichus.
For sure, dude. Xcloud, we already saw Nexus use it pretty well versus the New Orleans Pelippers and Pokemon, so he can definitely use that, so he has to be aware of that, because I feel like that will be a strong Pokemon in this matchup for sure. Mm-hmm. Going into the next game, we have the New Orleans Pelippers, coached by John, aka Pokemon, going against the LA Spice, coached by Kate Gray. Starmie's coverage with Analytic is going to be very, very dangerous in this matchup. If K-Cray is able to predict properly the limited switch-ins that the Pelippers kind of have to Starmie, then the Analytic boost is just going to be absolutely threatening. And even then, Starmie has a lot of safe moves that it can just click, but the use of Analytic is going to be very important in this, I feel like. It's going to be just outputting the total amount of damage that's going to be well used. But it weakens the team to where Mega Houndoom just puts in a hurt for sure, with its nice speed in 115 coming through once again. It's going to help outspeed Pokemon such as the Mega Diancie, and really might try to force like a Choice Scarfer in Sawk or Salamence. Even potential in Diggersby, of course. Because Scarf Diggersby is so reliable. But one Pokemon that we're going to see that's going to be pretty helpful is Cloud9 Licky Licky, helpfully dealing with the Sun abusers that K-Cray has in both Ninetales, Mega Houndoom, and Lilligant. Because, of course, if it was like a Scarf Licky Licky, it will easily outspeed Lilligant because it's going to ignore the Chlorophyll ability, which is actually pretty interesting. Scarf Chomp, even though it's so standard and so straightforward, it is so helpful and reliable in this matchup versus the Pokemon Mega Diancie, Mence, and Salazzle, also helping versus a lot of the just potential Scarfers, and like Mence again, Diggersby, and Sawk. So Garchomp, Scarf Chomp is going to be pretty useful, and Mimikyu also being just an amazing check to the offense with its ability in Disguise, as well as its immunities to the normal spam on Diggersby and the fighting spam that Sawk wants to probably use to try to hit the Porygon too, because that'd be difficult to kill. But when it came down to it, I decided to go with New Orleans Pelippers, and the only two analysts decided to go with the LA Spice were Jacob and JB Westside. And as for the votes at home, y'all decided to go with 64% in the New Orleans Pelippers.
Now, this game is very hard for me to pick just because I've seen the way Kay has been playing recently, and she has been on top of her games. Her sets have been near perfect every time, and she's getting better and better as she plays. And John hasn't really felt too comfortable with his team yet, so it makes me want to think that Kay has an absolute shot at this game to try to win. But my biggest thing here, like you said, is Scarf Diggersby. It does so much work to Kay's team that Scarf Chomp has to be the one to help deal with it, because remember, uh, it's going to hurt a lot from a huge power earthquake if Mimikyu's disguise gets broken at all. And if it does, Sawk has knockoff, so that could be something to look out for as well. Going into one of our final games here, we have the Newcastle Needle Kings coached by Patters versus the Minnesota Vikings coached by Dan, aka A-Drive. Holy cow, Scarf Terrakion just kind of has its way here. Dual Stab, Earthquake, and Ironhead come on in, claim a kill on something. It's also a really nice revenge killer to stop Kieran Black. Something to do keep an eye out for is Gastrodon. Don't sleep on Squeezy. That mon's so good, and it can really help check Mega Gyarados, Tapu Koko, and even Typhlosion if needed with Rindo Berry on it. Although, the best thing in this matchup is Mega Manectric. It does a lot of work keeping Patters honest with his Hippowdon. If Dan gets a couple hidden power ISOs off, it can kind of just click buttons and win itself. Now, going off the fan vote, you guys decided to go with Dan, aka Drive, and his Minnesota Vikavolt at 73%, and the Newcastle Needle Kings at 27%. Regarding our picks, though, everyone and their mother is picking Dan, with this being Cress's lock as well.
It's just hard to bet against Dan with how he's been doing lately. He's doing very well with the team. He has a full understanding of the bulk support to go with Kieran Black and everything of the sort. So it's definitely going to be very hard for the Newcastle Needle Kings, I feel like. All right, everyone, for the last match for this week, we have the New York Marauders, coached by Mr. Talent, going up against the South Texas Sableyes in Vivid Color. And when I'm looking at this matchup, I see Noivern being a pretty good Pokemon here, purely to scout items with Frisk. I feel like a lot of these Pokemon can really benefit from different items on the New York Marauders team. Pokemon such as Ambipom really like abusing Life Orb, or even if you want to be kind of annoying, you can run the King's Rock skill link set. Latias. Sorry, did I trigger you, Sawk? Did I scare you?
That set has put too much work in the past, and I don't want to see it do it again. Please, and no thank you. Thanks.
I think it'd be pretty fun to watch, and Drew's been looking out for a lot of fun stuff, especially with this Empoleon. But also, scouting items on Latias is so important, because Lati can really abuse things such as Cold Berry, maybe even like a Psychic Z or Shadow Z to hit Mew. Gyarados can really abuse like setup. It's good to scout whatever you need to on Buzzwole. Empoleon can really benefit from like a super effective Very every now and then, Nihilego, etc. So a lot of these Pokemon can really benefit from different items, so being able to scout that with Noivern can be pretty helpful. And just its speed tier is just so reliable in this game. Being able to have something else be Latias, potentially get off a Draco Meteor, as long as Lati's not like Calm Minding in front of your face, I feel like that's going to be pretty helpful. And even though there is a Mega Audino in the back, that's fine. You click U-turn and you bring in Nidoking. And Life Orb Nidoking does a lot of damage in this matchup, just like it does to almost every team that it faces. It's going to be really difficult for the Marauders to deal with it, I feel like. Latias is going to be pretty important, but even then, I see another kind of like slept-on Pokemon that I feel like with Life Orb and coverage can do is Rapidash. Rapidash with Flare Blitz, Wild Charge, High Horsepower, and Mega Horn is going to be kind of terrifying. I feel like it can definitely do some work. Yes, Latias is still going to get the outspeed on it. You can't really hit it for the Mega Horn. But just in case it thinks it might be able to get a free Calm Mind, if he doesn't know the coverage that Rapidash gets, boom, your Lati's gone. And that could be kind of terrifying. But lastly, I feel like Mega Aggron has pretty reliable bulk when it comes down to it in this matchup on the South Texas Sableye side. And that's kind of just free rocks. You get up a Roar versus some of the setup Pokemon such as Mega Latias and even potential in the Gyarados. So just have to be aware of that, and I really feel like the matchup's in favor of the South Texas Sableyes. As for the analysts, everyone decided to go with the South Texas Sableyes this week, and for you people at home, we have a 64% vote in the New York Marauders' favor with 36% against the South Texas Sableyes. So y'all at home are being the underdog for Drew right here, really trying to pull for him.
My biggest thing here, like you said, is Life Orb Nidoking does so much work. But one thing I do want to point out is Galvantula. That can be a huge thing to look out for because like 92% Specs Thunders hurt almost everything on Drew's team, and it's a really nice way to kind of pressure the Mega Audino if it decides to come. So it's just one thing I want to point out because Galvantula is such a good mon.
And that's going to be it, everyone. We went through all the games for this week and all the matchups. Make sure to, once again, go through and see what you guys want to choose for this coming week. We gave you our thoughts and the overall choices on Twitter, but make sure to check out all the team builders that are going to be going up. And look forward to the battles tomorrow, because we are going to definitely have some strong ones. There's going to be a few upsets, and I don't think anyone's going to go flawless this week for Pickems. I'd be highly doubtful about that, Sawk.
Nah, I got this, fam. I don't know what you're talking about. We're good.
So you want to talk about how you did last week?
No, we're fine. We can skip past that. Thank you guys very much for watching.
We really appreciate you guys showing your constant support, so we do appreciate it. But that'll be it. We'll see you all next week. Unfortunately, I think that's going to be it for Sawk, though. I feel like CJ will be back from here. So I would like to thank you once again, Sawk, for joining me these past 2 weeks.
Well, thank you very much for having me on, guys. It's been a pleasure. If you guys want to see more of me, check out the weekly recaps. That's where you'll find me there. Otherwise, be sure to continue watching the Pickems. I like to see your picks, and I love tuning into the show. And I can't wait to see what CJ does when he comes back and realize I'm the better analyst.
Ooh, shots fired. Okay, before that Sawk gets CJ any more upset, we're going to go and end it here. So once again, thank you guys for everything. Sub, like, share, deuces.
Peace out, Scouts.